Hi, and welcome to the BookishStitcher podcast. My name is Jeanette. You can find me on Ravelry, Instagram, and Goodreads as BookishStitcher, all one word. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week since I last podcasted. It's Mother's Day here in the States right now, so if you celebrate, I hope you're having a wonderful one. I do celebrate. I have one very young, not super young, but not a baby, but a toddler, and then a second grader, so we're definitely celebrating here. And I had a wonderful Mother's Day weekend so far. My husband let me go yesterday and enjoy some time out with some knitting friends. So I have some knitting friends that I've met at different things, and they live in Round Rock, which is north of Austin, and I live in San Antonio, which is south. So we met about halfway. There was a big group of us, and we met in this little town called Green. And it's a very cute little town. It has a main street, and it has shopping and restaurants, and it's just very much a place that you go to kind of spend a day. And so we went there, we met at a coffee shop for breakfast, and I got to sit and knit with my friends for a few hours. And then unbeknownst to me, there was a yarn store just a walk away. So we walked over to the yarn store after breakfast, and I got some goodies, which I will show you in enabling. It's exciting. They're really pretty. And then after that, we headed over to, and I believe the yarn store's name was the Lucky You or the Happy You, spelled E-W-E, of course, but I can't remember the exactly first word of it. But after that, we went over to this place for lunch, and it was amazing. I am a vegetarian, so sometimes when you go to just a random restaurant, when they have a certain menu, it can be limited as to what you can get, but this place had some really awesome vegetarian options. And the thing that I ended up getting was one of their sample plates, because their lunches were pretty big, so I just got a little plate. But it was really cool because it was quesadillas, but on the inside was spinach, but there was also roasted almonds, which I had never, like almond slivers. And I had never thought to put that in a quesadilla, and then the cream on the inside was cumin cream. And so it was really, really good, and it had a sauce with it, and I really enjoyed that. And so I came home kind of late afternoon from my day out with friends, and then it was knit night last night. And I asked my husband if it was okay if I went to knit night, and he said fine, that he couldn't think of a better way for me to spend my Mother's Day weekend than having fun and relaxing with friends. This was so sweet of him. And so I went out to knit night, but I couldn't hang. I was so tired from the entire days running around that you know when you're so tired that you can't even knit? That was me. I would knit a couple stitches and I would lie back in the booth, close my eyes, open them because I would hear somebody laughing at me because I was sleeping. So I decided to just go home. I wasn't there for very long. I came home and just kind of went to bed early. I was so tired. And I've had a good day today so far. My son made me my Mother's Day present, which is this necklace. It says, "Love you, Mommy." And it's in all my favorite colors, green and blue, and there's purple and some pink. And he had me to find my Mother's Day present. I had to go on a scavenger hunt, so that was really fun and really cute. And I'm just going to take a sip really fast of my chai tea that I have here. This is in my Julia Dean pottery mug. And I wanted to shout out to Christian Crafter, I believe is her Instagram name, and maybe her Ravelry name too. She got one of these, similar, but by the same pottery person, for Mother's Day. So I hope you enjoy your mug. She said she had seen me show it off, and she, I guess, either asked for it or her husband surprised her with it, or her kids, but they're gorgeous. I would dump it over, or I would tip it over to show you Julia Dean's name, but after last week when I drank fiber, I don't think I'll be doing that again this week with a mishap with my drink. Thank you everyone who tried to shout through the screen to stop me from drinking fiber. My brain was just so overcome with the desire for coffee that the fiber couldn't be remembered. But I don't have any fluffy fiber that can float into my drink this week. And I also wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone. I forgot to say this last week. I got tons of Ravelry messages and messages from people in our Ravelry group for the podcast saying, don't frog the sweater, the Fair Isle sweater. So I'm going to keep it and I'm going to keep going. I love it and I think I'll be really proud of it when I'm done. It'll just be one of those things that takes forever to finish. So that's fine. I'll show it to you guys maybe a couple times a year until it's done. But speaking of done things, I have something finished. This is my charity hat for SSK, which is a retreat. It's the Super Summer Knit Together retreat that every year in Nashville that I've gone to. This might be my second year. But they collect charity hats, and you get a raffle ticket for knitting them, and so it's a win-win. But I designed a hat. I made up this pattern, but unless a whole bunch of people just adamantly want me to write it up, and then I would have to get help because I have no idea how to write up a pattern. But I made this up. It's a Fair Isle design that I did. It doesn't exist anywhere as far as I know. I like to, if I'm making a scrappy hat, I like to design it up myself. So it's a Fair Isle pattern that I did. It's using Knit Picks Brava and then just some scraps that I had lying around the house. And I don't know if you can see, but I did specialized decreases on each of the things. So that was fun, kind of figuring out the math to get the decreases to do what I wanted it to have to go into that. And you can kind of see there it forms a little bit of like a star. I think it's pretty. So one hat ready to go for the charity to go with me to Nashville. And it's the only finished object I got done this week. Let me start off with what got the least, I don't want to say love, but just worked on. I still love this project. I just didn't get that much done on it. And it's in my awesome granny bag. This is my Mondo Cable Cardi by Chic Knits. And it's out of some mustache targhee. Their sweater targhee. Huge skeins. And last week when I showed this to you guys, I had just started the sleeves. And gotten a little bit farther. I think I did probably 6 or 8 inches on it, but it's looking nice. And hopefully once some other stuff has kind of gotten off the needles, this will zoom by. But I am going to work on it a lot more this week. And as you can see, it still has the giant ball of doom, giant ball of wonderfulness accompanying it. Hopefully, you know, as I knit, it'll get smaller and smaller. It'll be really neat to see if I can use it up to the last little bit, like make the sleeves long enough and the collar that it's all used up on this sweater. So that is that one that I worked on. The next thing I want to show you is my socks. These went with me to all my knitting adventures yesterday. And I finished the one. And I like a really long cuff. I almost made it even longer, but I decided, There's the first one. And then here's the second one. These are just some of the most fun socks ever. I just keep smiling up. And I'll be a little bit sad when I use up all the yarn and I'm done with the socks, but I will have fun wearing them. So those are my Opal Smile socks. I have the tag in here. And this is in my Sew For You bag. It's really pretty. I love hot air balloons. As you can see, I have 2 hot air balloon bags. But this is that yarn. Opal Smile. Next thing I worked on is a spoiler. So if you are doing the Susanna IC Spring Mystery Shawl along, and you haven't caught up and don't want to see this, look away. Let me take another sip of my tea. So I got to hang out with Susanna all day yesterday because she came to everything. In fact, she was the one laughing at me a lot when I was falling asleep at the restaurant in the night. So I am knitting this shawl. It's for my mom. I'm knitting it out of some Desert Vista Dye Works. It's in a gradient. I believe it's the Mona Lisa gradient. It's a navy blue, 2 different browns to a red. And I'm completely caught up on the clues. It's really pretty. I showed it to my mom. This is her Mother's Day present that isn't finished yet. But she's fine with waiting. She loves the beads. She kept saying how gorgeous it was because she doesn't do beadwork, but she thinks it's pretty, and she said that she said, I will wear this shawl even when I'm old and in the nursing home. So, and she felt it and thought it was really soft. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's blue beads, and then there are also copper beads. And I'm doing the small size on this, so I get rest weeks. And I just finished up the red, so next will be another brown. I think it's so pretty, and it's really, really soft, this yarn. And I've been having a lot of fun. I haven't really messed up on the shawl, so that's good. It didn't take me a long time to get back into my lace knitting groove. The last thing I have to show this week is actually it's funny because I got this bag from my mom as a present, but then she gave it back to me because she said she knits, but she only knits bigger things. She doesn't ever knit socks, ever. Anything with small needles, she's not going to touch it. She likes to receive socks. That's one of the main gifts that she asks for from me, but she does not want to make them. So I had gotten her this bag just because I thought it was cute and kind of to entice her maybe to knit smaller things, but she gave it back to me. But this is a Stitch by Sasha bag that I got weeks and weeks ago for my mom. Months probably. Inside this is my Misswinkle shawl out of some lovely Marigold Jen in the Lavender Fields color. And this is just so, so pretty. And last week when I showed this to you guys, I had done 5 loops, so about that much. Now I have done, you see, 20. So I'm halfway there. It's so, so pretty. See if I can get it to go up like that. But it's really pretty. And the yarn is nice to work with. It has a good sheen. I'm just really enjoying this project. It makes me very, very happy. So that is all of my works in progress that I have. And thank goodness, because it feels like a lot right now. I really wanted to cast on a couple other things because aren't there always? There are some knit-alongs going on right now that I really want to join in on, but it would just overwhelm me if I had too many things on the needles. I am easily overwhelmed with almost anything, but I don't like to have a lot of projects on the needles or anything like that, and I normally don't even like to have many Ravelry groups that I'm in. I used to not be able to handle having over 20 or 25 Ravelry groups, but since I started podcasting, I got invited to a ton of groups and different things like that. So I've been trying to convince myself that I can be in more groups, and I decided, okay, 50 is the limit. I can never be over 50 groups because it's just too many. But yesterday while I was out with my knitting friend, my friend Jeanette told me that I can organize all my tabs into different stuff. So if there's a group that I am active in, I can have that up at the very forefront. And if there's groups that I'm not as active in, I can hide those away. So I'm so excited that I found this out. And if you don't know how to do this, or if you like to have organized group things like I do, you can go onto Ravelry, and it's in the forums. And on the very right side of the forums there'll be a settings, and you can create different tabs for all your groups, and it's wonderful. So I did that earlier today. Now, on to where I normally would show you guys spinning. But this week, I have something a little bit different than I've been working on for a little bit that I wanted to show you. Move my enabling out of the way. So, I've been talking about doing this for a while, and I finally decided, just do it. You know, you can't let it build up anymore in your mind. Like, I can't make myself be nervous about it because it's not as hard as I think it is. And I have some people that I follow on Instagram who do amazing, intricate ones of these. So I think I was just a little bit intimidated. And you're probably wondering, what is it? Well, it is some cross stitch. So now I can be the bookish stitcher in every sense of the word that I know of. I always think of it as stitcher as in like dropped a stitch, or that phrase where my stitch is at, just stitches as in knit stitches. But I know a lot of people consider it for cross stitch. So now I can say that I can check off both those steps. So this is eventually, it's not centered exactly as you can see. I'm just going to probably reposition the hoop later because that does annoy me a little bit, but it's going to be a heart done in knit stitches with knitting needles up here. So even my cross stitch will be knitting related. And I won't show this again until I'm done with it, just because I don't really want to do that all the time. And this one especially is just 2 colors, so it's not going to be anything really interesting. But I did have to do a lot of modifications with this because the one that I got off Etsy, it was a 90 by a 60, I guess, and since I was just starting out, I wasn't quite sure what that meant. So it would have been a huge cross stitch. It would not have fit in the hoop if I were to have done that. So I just downsized it, which isn't hard. If you know math, you can downsize things just by plugging in a formula. So that's kind of what I did with that. I did do spinning, but I didn't bring it down to show. I'll bring it to show next week because I wanted to show the cross stitch this week. So now, on to enabling. Yay! I'm so excited about this because my Mother's Day present, I actually started recording earlier, but I realized I had forgotten my Mother's Day present that my husband got me, which is amazing to show you guys. And I know it's one of those things that only fellow knitters will understand, so I have to show you guys. And then my dog was barking up a storm, so I just started re-recording and went and paused the recording and went and got my Mother's Day present, but I'm going to show that to you last. First, I'm going to show you what I got at the Lucky You. I don't remember what it's called. Lucky You or Happy You. It's one of those. But I got my first ever Vice yarns. And this is a local Texas dyer. I think they dye out of Houston. But I've never had any of this yarn, and I know it's really popular, so I wanted to try some. It's so pretty. I love that. Look at those colors. It has the purple and the blue. I don't know why, but it's very happy to me. So, and this is, rumor has it, is the colorway, and it's called Blurred Lines is the base. It's a fingering weight in 80/20 superwash nylon, 500 yards. So I think I could do socks for myself and then socks for my daughter. So it's pretty. Vice yarns from Houston. I don't know if they have an Etsy shop or anything. But the next one I have to show you has an Etsy shop, and you should go check it out. So they had a bowl in the middle of this yarn store that my friends pointed out to me, because my friends are good enablers. They're good friends, but Dina, I think it was Dina that pointed it out to me. And this is Texas dyed wool. And it's a 75/25 superwash merino nylon, and the colorway is Mediterranean Day. Look at that. It's so pretty. I love that. And they have an Instagram account. I didn't follow them on Instagram because I am not good at seeing pretty things and not buying them. So it's kind of one of those things that I'm just saving myself from spending all my money. But they do have an Instagram account, and they're adorable. And I read some about them. It's an engaged couple's project that they do together. And I believe the guy is the dyer and kind of handles some of the business. And then the girl for sure does the Instagram account and maybe does some taking pictures, but I thought it was really cool that the guy is the one who does most of the dyeing and does all the color stuff, because my son is very good with colors. He's amazing at picking out stuff, so it just kind of made me smile because it made me think of my son and how he has great color sense. I just think it's so pretty. And then because they had another pretty one, I had to get that one. Let me fix the label. So it's Texas dyed wool. It's the same. And isn't that pretty? I think that's so nice. This is called Bad Ballerina, which of course made me think of the Black Swan movie. And it kind of is applicable to, it's the same base and everything. It's 463 yards, which is a great thing. But it has pinks and shots of purple, and then black with some specks. But most of it is this very subtle, pretty pink. And I think that's just so gorgeous. So they're on Etsy if you want to go check them out and see. And if you want to follow them on Instagram, they're just the same, Texas dyed wool. And they post when they're having updates and stuff like that. Which is another reason why I cannot follow people, because I see, oh, they're having an update. I should just go look just to see, and then I buy stuff. That's how I got the Marigold Jen, because I do follow Marigold Jen on there. But so Texas dyed wool, really, really pretty, and I'm really excited about knitting those up. It's another sip. The last thing I have to show you makes me fancy. I am now officially fancy, and you know, I never thought I would be this fancy because I am not a fancy person, but I am now officially a fancy knitter. Can you guess what I now have? This company was at DFW Fiberfest, and I didn't get anything from them. I looked and I thought about it, but it was like 3 skeins of yarn for one thing, so I got yarn instead. But I did tell my husband when I came home from that I was a little bit sad that I hadn't gotten them, and they were in green for the size I needed. So what did the wonderful man go and do? He went and got me some for Mother's Day. So sweet. But look. Okay. Signature needle arts. Do you know what this means? It means I have signature needles. Never, ever, ever would have thought that I would say those words. I would never have in a million years bought these for myself because, like I said, to me, in my mind, it's 3 skeins of yarn for needles. And I kept thinking, oh, you know, there are other needles that work just fine. I'm very utilitarian. But if they're a gift, then, hey, I won't say no. So what did I do? Because you can see that they're not in the case. I did a Mother's Day cast on. I had to try out the needles. So using, and I didn't include this in my projects, but so using some Zauberball Crazy. This is some of my oldest 15 skeins yarns for the knit along we're doing in the group right now, where if you knit anything with one of your older 15 skeins and put it in the thread, you can win a pattern, and it's every month there's a drawing for that. And that's in the BookishStitcher podcast, all one word. So I love this. I think it's really pretty. And I have this in one of my Diana Couture, the person who made that knitting bag that I love. I got some of her DPN cases at Dallas, Fort Worth months ago, March. So just snap this open so I can show you my signature needles. Okay, are you ready? They're green. I love green. Green and purple and blue are like my favorites. So there they are. And there's just the tiniest wee bit of a cup that I cast on. And so if you know me, or if you even don't know me in real life, but you watch the podcast, you might be able to guess that I'm a tiny bit goofy. Especially around people I know. In large groups, I'm not goofy. I'm the quiet one. But if I'm in a small group of friends, I know I'm really, really the goofy one. So I kept doing this to my husband, and he's probably going to quickly regret that he ever bought these for me. That's what they do. They make a noise every time you knit. So I was just having a lot of fun with that. I don't know. I think it's cool that they They zzz, make that noise. So enough about that. I'm not fancy. Just have it out there. This is the one thing in my life that I'll ever be fancy about. Because I'm not fancy at all. Now, on to the book this week, which is actually a funny story. I can see storm clouds are coming in outside, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm excited to read and watch the storm. But let me finish the podcast first. So, the book this week. I actually have in a real book form, but I don't have that with me because as I was searching frantically through my enormous bookshelves, couldn't find it. And then I remembered, do you ever do this? I had loaned it out to a friend 2 years ago, and I know this friend still. They moved, but I mean, we still talk and stuff on Facebook, which that reminds me to tell you something in a second. At the end of the podcast, I'll talk about it. But they moved, so they're not really within driving distance anymore, and so I guess they just have a free book now. Hopefully they've read it and enjoyed it. So I got this on the iPad to show you guys. So, pull it up. The book this week is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Have you read this? This book immediately intrigued me when I heard of its concept because the writer, Ransom Riggs, had taken vintage photographs, creepy vintage photographs, and done them as a story. So the entire story is placed throughout with different photographs, and they kind of help move along the story and are applicable to what's happening in the story at that moment. And so the basic premise of this story is that there are children that are peculiar, and Mrs. Peregrine is kind of their watcher over. And the main person in the story is Jacob, and he kind of finds out through peculiar things that he is peculiar, and he goes into a time warp and ends up in this place where all the peculiar children are hiding. Well, not all, but all for this Miss Peregrine's, all her peculiar children are hiding. And he goes there, and he can get in and out of the world by going through this loop, but the children that are within the peculiar land cannot get out because they would age, because they're in a loop, a time loop from very, very, very long ago. Basically, his grandfather, Jacob's grandfather, was a child at this peculiar home and got out just before they closed the loop so that you could never get out, or started the loop so that you couldn't get out. So all the kids are Jacob's age, but they were around the time that his grandfather was a kid, so 60, 80 years ago. And so Jacob goes into this place and meets all these kids and kind of finds out more just about the land and finds out about his gifts, and there's battles and bad people that they have to fight. And it's very much a cliffhanger at the end of this book. You get to know all the different children and you get to see pictures of them. I'll show a couple. But there's that one. And then there's another picture. All the pictures are just very neat in that they go along so well with the story. Let's see if I can make, they're not very big. There's another, and these are all actual vintage photographs that the author has collected or borrowed from different estates and used them for the story. Here's another one. This one's very, very creepy. So it's just really cool to see the way that the pictures fit in. And each of the children in the peculiar home can do different things. Like one of the kids can fight the bad guys, another kid can become invisible, another kid can play with fire, another kid can control insects. They just all have different powers that kind of help them in this world where they live. And Mrs. Peregrine can transform into a bird or a person, so that's really neat. And The story, it's not very long. I believe it's just over 300 pages. And there is a sequel to it called Hollow City, which I do have. That one I didn't borrow out. It's still up downstairs in my bookshelf. But that's really good. And it's already out now. So if you, like me, don't like where you get to the end of a book and there's a cliffhanger and you have to wait for the next one to come out, which is exactly what happened with this book, because I got this one almost as soon as it came out. I was just so intrigued by the idea of the pictures helping to tell the story. And the second book does that too, where there are unique pictures that help tell the story. And I believe this has been a really popular book, so you might have already heard of it or already read it. But if you haven't and you like, it's definitely a teen fantasy book, I guess, a young adult, but I would really recommend it. It's so good, and I really enjoyed it. And the second one, The Hollow City, probably wasn't as good as the first, but I still enjoyed that one a lot. So the book this week, one more time, show you guys the cover just in case you forgot, is This is Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I think they might be making a movie out of it, or talking about making a movie out of it, or they did. Anyways, I don't remember. So that is all I have for you guys this week. I hope that you have a wonderful week and that you get to do all the things you love. Okay, bye.